So it seems to me that there has been a lot of enthusiasm over following what the president thinks is good business. Is that a winning strategy?
I mean, it might be a winning strategy if you're early. If you guess right and you're early, which is a big if, it could be a winning strategy. But I think for the majority of people, like anything else, if you're chasing something, I don't think it's a good play.
Okay, where do you think investors should be looking right now? And when you're making these suggestions, how do you think that the administration's policies could affect what your suggestions are?
Well, it's very difficult as a retail trader. It's very difficult for an institutional trader, and it's very difficult, probably even more difficult for a retail trader, to be able to try to, guess what's happening next, and then also to be right with respect to, the market accommodating you. So I think that retail traders should focus on the stuff that's smart for them. They should focus on stocks that they think, if they want to buy stocks, they should focus on stocks that they think are maybe a little bit oversold, stocks that are cheap relative to the rest of the market. And they should stay away from some of the high flyers and stay away from some of the guessing games and stay away from some of the, the earnings plays and things like that. I know the excitement around liquidity gets people all fired up and they think that there's, this asymmetrical upside. But you got to be a little careful because we are at basically, we're one tick away from record highs.
It's interesting, though, in the companies that the U.S. has taken a stake in, the stock performance has followed with dramatic gains. I mean, you've got MP Materials, which had a 95% improvement afterwards. Intel, the government stake is 10%. That stock went up 72%. I mean, talk to me a little bit about the correlation between the U.S. and where it's putting its money and what happens with investments.
Well, those are both two good examples. I mean, in the case of MP, you saw a stock that did, it did go, rallied all the way up to $100 and then quickly sold off 50%. I mean, they caught the street long, very long. And I think they caught a lot of people off guard with, the 50% sell off in there. You got to remember when something rallies 95%, but then sells off 50%, pretty much everybody loses. And that was the case in MP. When you talk about Intel, you're talking about a stock where the government made a good play from a trader perspective in Intel because this stock was the cheapest stock in the space and it had been oversold, literally oversold for probably for the last, half to 3/4 of a decade. So they weren't buying something that was, at the high end of its range. Intel was, basically stuck in that $22 to $28 range for, almost 2 years. So I don't think that the jump in Intel really surprised anybody.
Yeah.
I think the way that it jumped may have surprised people, but I don't think the jump itself surprised people that much.
Tom,
MP, very different situation.
Yeah. Let me ask you about, sort of this narrative that's unfolding right now about AI. I mean, you've got AMD's Lisa Su saying yesterday she expects 35% annual sales growth over the next few years. And then Michael Burry posting on social media that, these hyperscalers are underestimating the depreciation of their chips. You've got Kramer saying, hey, the debt financing on this should make you look askance. Where do you come down on where we are in the AI cycle?
Well, I would be leaning more towards the Michael Burry Kramer side than I would be to the Lisa Su side. Now, again, Lisa's talking her book, so she has to say that. I think that when you look at AI, and I trade all of these stocks, so it's not like this is something that I'm just looking at from a distance. I'm actually have positions long and short in a lot of them. I think that, there's no question that everybody is being impacted by AI. Everybody is in AI. Everybody's using AI. I run an AI startup now. I mean, that's just the way of the world.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that these stocks aren't ridiculously expensive relative to the marketplace. Okay. And I think that's the way you have to look at it. You have to think about it going back almost, to the early 2000s when we looked at all these internet companies and we said they're building the foundation for the future. And these AI companies are definitely building the foundation for the future. The only difference is in 2025, these companies are really too big to fail. And in 2000, those companies were not too big to fail. So I think it's a different type of marketplace, but I think these are foundational companies. I don't necessarily think that they're cheap by any stretch.